The role of women in the US during the 20s. I choose this topic because the transition between the First and the Second World War is very interesting to me, and it was a time where the perspective of society evolved. There were important technological and social advances. This decade marked the United States and set a line on the perspective of women and many other situations that were lived before and were not exposed. This decade was characterized by enjoying life, but at the end of the First World War, when men began to return to their homes, they were met with an unexpected surprise because his wives and many others were not longer so willing as before the war to household chores or charity work. During the 4 years of the war, they had played the roles that had previously belonged to the men, and they no longer wanted to back down. The women gave herself to a life full of activities. They went a lot more to the movies and a lot less to boring social gatherings. She took up the practice of sports such as tennis and swimming, and she handled cars with ease. She smoked and broached previously forbidden conversation topics with interest. She danced foxtrot, chick to chick, charleston, black bottom, and to assume her new behaviors, she abandoned the silk fringe and got rid of the annoying lingerie and took off the hats full of complications and the long street dress, which at the beginning of the war was imposing itself. The general female slogan was to cultivate the almost masculine youth type, eliminating the corset that deprived movements of naturalness, cutting her hair boyishly, and wearing deep hats. In summary, women who had been forced to work outside the home because of labor shortages during the war were unwilling to give up their social and economic independence after the war had ended. Women gained the right to vote, and American women now felt liberated. This led to a desire for them waiting to create their own culture which embraced their new values. The women wanted to have fun and enjoy their life to the fullest. As I already mentioned, they adopted a look that was masculine, bobbing her hair and abandoning corset. She drank and smoked in public, and she was more open about sex. And these elements signified a code or symbols that represents the non-conformity of women. I think it was a decisive time for the beginning of the feminist movement on a smaller scale, as women began to demand their rights, starting, as I already mentioned, with the vote of women. And as a technology concern, in the 1920s were a period of dramatic technological change that transformed the fundamental structure of the economy. Some technological advances during this age were the radio and broadcasting, the cars, and telephones. With this type of technological advances in transportation and communication media, society began to be greatly influenced by standards established in these media, which caused people to become more concerned than ever about following trends. Everything was fun until the crack of 1929. At least a quarter of the workforce was unemployed. Adjusting inflation, salaries had fallen by 40% and industrial wages by 60%. In conclusion, I think that this decade was a key for the United States since it marked an era of happiness after the First World War. However, it was also characterized by the change of thought in society, where women began to come out of the box of what they were. It is interesting to see the beginning of the decade with happiness and fulfillment, and how over the years the perception was modified, as well as the stability that they believed that the country had. Well, The Great Depression showed that stability is not forever.